I'm smiling because I finally got to service today after what it seems to be like forever, since October. I believe it's October. I think it's October. I forget now. But essentially the first time since my surgery on my neck, I was able to come to church. Kind of hunched back a little bit just because of just current aches. But I was glad to be able to make it into the house of the Lord today. That was wonderful. I was able to see Pastor and the ministers and the saints, and it was nice to see each and every one of them. In fact, it was good to even swing by the children's church, which my wife was so diligent. That was her ministry. Her ministry was to children, and it's good that they had told me that they're doing things that from what she used to do, and it made my heart feel glad. Not arrogant, but that at least she left some type of legacy. Not to say that she won't come back, but at least I know that the children are in good hands. As far as my wife herself, she's asleep. I picked up something for her to eat, and it seems like everything I eat or everything I get her has the sleep ingredient for whatever it happens to be. She eats, then she passes out. That's kind of what happened today as well. Except today I did have to give her a breathing treatment. This is something that periodically you do. Nothing that she's in danger of going to the hospital, but helps her breathe a little better. Anyway, this is Elder Adrian Heyman, and we're continuing on the study of Genesis. Right now we're on chapter 5, and we are going to go with verse 25. We were just finishing up with Enoch, and Enoch was the first man, first being, human being, to be caught up before he passed away. So he was translated. He didn't die. He essentially was able to, he right now he's in heaven. Enoch is in heaven with his body. Only one other person in the Bible is there. Not that he was perfect, but he walked with God. That was the key. Didn't say he was perfect, but he walked with God, especially during an age where it seems as if people were falling away, were doing some despicable things. And you'll be able to see that as we go along. But let's go pick up verse number 25. And it says, and Methuselah lived 187 years and begot Lamech. Now, this Lamech, or Lamech, I'm thinking it's Lamech. But anyway, this is not the same Lamech as it was in Cain's line. These are two different people, like you people today. Some are called Joe, some are called John, some are called Michael, some are called Sue, some are called Betty, some are called Ann. People sometimes have the same name, but you know that they're different. Lamech was full of himself. In Cain's line, he was full of himself. He essentially said that I killed someone. Now I dare anyone to come in and try to get me, because if Cain be avenged sevenfold, certainly I am to be avenged 70 times sevenfold. Now, to me, that was a bit presumptuous on Lamech's part. But anyway, this is not the same Lamech that's mentioned in chapter 5 as it was in chapter 4. Now, verse 26. And Methuselah lived after he begat Lamech 782 years and begat sons and daughters. Remember, again, I want you to remember, this is just the line from Adam to Noah. This has nothing to do with all the other boys and girls, or males and females, that was created by this line, which should make you a little bit sober about this. Enoch was, first of all, was the one who walked with God. But no one else of his father's, Jared's line, no other person could say that same thing. He was a distinct minority in that he served God. His attention was to God. I wonder what kind of resistance that was with him or to him from his siblings, much less anyone else. I wonder what things he had to go through in order for him to walk with God. The ridicule that he had to face. We talk about Noah, but Enoch essentially, remember, his mind was on God, not like everyone else. And you'll see in the subsequent chapter why this is so interesting. Now, understanding that you have two lines of humanity upon the earth. You have Seth's line and you have Cain's line. And it didn't really tell you how old Lamech was and how old, in Cain's line, didn't tell you how old Lamech was or anyone else on his line. But if they were anything comparable or comparable to Seth's line, then there was a lot of people on the earth by the time it got to Enoch. Enoch on Seth's line, of course. And so people essentially lived a long time, had many children. They begat sons and daughters, and you don't know just how many sons and daughters came out of this. But it was only this line, only that one line, from Adam to when you finally get to Noah. The only one that essentially seems to be protected by God for some reason. They weren't murdered. They weren't killed any other way. They didn't have an accident, something fall upon them. And neither did they have a disease that took them out. At least it doesn't say that in the word. So he had to protect them in some way. But let me get back to the genealogy. Verse number 26. And Methuselah lived after he begat Lamech 782 years. I think I read that. And begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Methuselah were 969 years. And he died. Two things about it. Number one, Methuselah became the oldest living human being, at least officially, at least from what the Bible talks about, the oldest living human being in Earth's history. Methuselah, 969 years, according to the Bible. He lived even longer than Jared. Jared had lived 962 years. So you had, it's funny, Jared, 962, begat Enoch. Enoch lived 365 years before he was taken up by God. Enoch had Methuselah, who lived 969 years. So the one whose lifespan upon this earth was the shortest was sandwiched by the two longest. Interesting. Very interesting. But again, as with Adam, as with Seth, as with Enos, as with Canaan, as with Jared, and now Methuselah. That those three words tempers your enthusiasm for their longevity. Because even after all that, and he died. So we have to make sure that in this life, we take care of what we need to do from God, because if the Lord doesn't come before too long, we will all pass away. And I don't mean by nuclear war, I don't mean by famine, I don't mean by pestilence or by epidemic. Just old age. So we have to do what we have to do now. Not worry about what other people are saying. Verse 28. And Lamech lived 182 years and begat a son. And he called his name Noah, saying, this same shall comfort us concerning our work and the toil of our hands, because of the ground which the Lord hath cursed. Now, that was what Lamech thought. This is not saying this is what happened, but this is what he thought. It's like essentially Eve saw Cain, or know that Cain killed Abel, and she named her son Seth, as he was replacing Abel, not Cain. Abel was the righteous one, so he was replacing the one who was righteous. In this case, Lamech thought that there would be this would be someone who would comfort us in some way. Maybe he would create something to help with the soil. Maybe he would make it easier for people to get things out of the ground. It was a lot of anticipation with Noah, but they didn't know what his true value was. They had no idea what his true value was. But this was essentially their hope. Because they knew that essentially, even though they didn't receive the same curse as Cain did, the ground still did not give fruit bountifully without work. It was toil. Maybe they also heard of Adam and heard of how he didn't have to toil very much or barely at all, that the ground just sprang up things to eat. But after he was thrown out of the garden, after he was banished from the garden, we've had to cultivate. We had to work with the sweat of our brow. We had to make sure that bugs don't get into the plants and eat the plants. So we have to make sure that bacteria or fungi doesn't get on the plants and then spread to other plants, and then we have a whole crop messed up. We have to make sure that animals don't get into our fields and then eat those cereals. There's already something going on, and have to wonder, is it going to be a drought? Is it going to dry the plants up? Is it going to be too much rain? Are they going to drown the plants? And all these things are happening. And you're saying, well, I foresee this child will grow up into someone who would comfort, who would make it easier for us to toil or for us to grow things. Because essentially, it wasn't a lot of making of tools except on Cain's side. But then maybe he was the first, those who were on Cain's side were the first ones to produce tools that would help them to grow. And maybe they thought that Noah was going to be doing the same thing. But it's a very interesting thing that they said. He will comfort us concerning the work that they had to do. And Lamech lived after he begat Noah 595 years. And of course he begat sons and daughters. But this means that Lamech did not live as long as any of the others who came before him. Didn't live as long as Seth, didn't live as long as Enoch, Mahalalel, Canaan, any of them. He barely lived that much longer than Enoch, and Enoch was caught up. And all the days of Lamech were 777 years, and he died. Please don't do the numerology on his name or on his number. 777. You think, oh, that's three. That's three. Perfect. Number 7. That's not what that's trying to do here. Let's make sure that if we're going to do something like that, make sure that it is based upon biblical principle, spiritual. Now, there are certain things you can use numerology on because essentially it deals with a dream or it deals with a vision. And sometimes those things don't come out unless you explore all the things within the vision. This is not a vision. This is just essentially that someone lived that particular number of years. Now, the most interesting thing about this is that some people did calculations of this, and they had shown that in the year that Lamech died, or even Methuselah died. I think Lamech even died, he died earlier than Methuselah. Let me see that. 82 years. Yes, he did. Methuselah lived after he begat Lamech 782 years. Lamech was born and he lived 777 years. So 5 years between the time that Lamech died. Because people wondering, well, how did he die so quickly? 777 is quick, and that day it was. But then Methuselah died 5 years after that. Some people say that his name means when he dies, the rain will come, or when he dies, the flood will come. It's possible, but they had no idea what a flood was. They'd never seen a flood. They barely had seen rain. It was essentially a mystery as to what was going to happen next. But Noah had this. See how sometimes we have some things put upon us, some things thrust upon us. And that's not really where we want to go or where God wants us to go. We're stuck with it, but we really don't want to be in that position. That's maybe what our parents think or what other people think. But that's not really what I'm called to do. And keep what Lamech said about his son Noah in mind, because we're going to get into that as well. And last verse of chapter 5, and Noah was 500 years old, and Noah begat Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now, it does not say that Noah had anyone before Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Maybe he did, and they left him. We don't know. But we do know that Shem, Ham, and Japheth stayed with their father, which would prove to be vital to their survival. Join me next time as we continue our journey through Genesis, beginning with chapter number 6. Thank you for your patience, and may God bless you, and may He keep you.